I was sent this post yesterday and I was supposed to tackle it, so I'm doing it today. This was posted in the IMA subreddit. She says, I am a journalist who investigates how survivors of domestic and sexualized violence end up in prison for their abusers' crimes. Ask me anything. This topic just speaks to how important it is to walk away or run away as soon as you see any kind of red flags that there could be some abuse or DV, because even if they do it to somebody else, your life and freedom could be impacted. She says, hi, everyone. I'm Shannon Heffernan, and I'm a staff writer for the Marshall Project. My recent reporting shows how even if a person doesn't directly commit a crime, they can still be sent to prison. That's because of some surprising laws that many people don't know about. Accomplice liability laws, which every state has, allow someone to be punished for assisting or supporting another person who commits a crime, in some cases, even if that participation is under the threat of violence. Failure to protect laws punish someone if they put their child in a dangerous situation, for example. My reporting shows that survivors of domestic and sexualized violence are vulnerable to prosecution because of the control their abusers hold over them. She says, here are my 5 takeaways. She posts a link to her site, and I'm going to come back to that. She says, I review court documents to find where prosecutors charged a person, mostly women, for supporting, taking part in, or failing to stop a crime by their alleged abuser. I found nearly 100 cases, but there are likely many more. For example, a woman is in an Oklahoma prison because her boyfriend severely beat her child when she wasn't at home. Like in other cases, evidence that the woman was herself being abused was used against her. Prosecutors argued that because he had previously choked her, she should have known better than to have her child with him. A woman was convicted in federal court for a conspiracy to traffic a minor in Alaska, despite being 19 and being trafficked by her co-defendant. Court documents said he had recently shot her in the stomach while she was pregnant with his child. She had to register as an ex-offender, and her home address was made public, which she said makes her vulnerable to further harassment and threats. She said, I heard from lawmakers and survivors advocates that there are at least 2 possible ways to tackle this problem. First, change failure to protect laws and accomplice liability laws so there are fewer prosecutions of people who have survived intimate partner violence. Second, pass laws that make it easier for survivors to have their history of abuse considered at sentencing or in resentencing hearings. For over 15 years, I've reported on abuse and the criminal justice system. Ask me anything. And here she is. Now, here is her article on the Marshall Project. 5 things to know about how survivors get incarcerated for their abusers' crimes. Little known laws allow people to be punished for crimes they didn't directly commit. Survivors of DV are especially vulnerable. 1, there's no comprehensive data about how many survivors are incarcerated for an abuser's crime, but some research suggests it's a significant issue. A study of 72 women serving life in Michigan prisons found 60% were there for a murder they didn't commit. Most of those crimes were connected to a man they had a relationship with. In a different survey of people serving time for murder or manslaughter in women's prisons, 13% of the respondents said they had been convicted for a crime committed with their abuser. Reviewing court documents, the Marshall Project identified nearly 100 cases where the person was punished in connection with an abuser's crime. This is likely just a small sample of the cases that exist. Number 2, evidence of abuse is sometimes excluded at trial. Other times it's used against women. In some states, it does not legally matter if a person helped with a murder because they were threatened with death or feared physical violence. As a result, evidence of domestic abuse may not be considered relevant. In other cases, a survivor's history of abuse may be used to justify their punishment. For example, prosecutors in Tulsa County, Oklahoma, pointed to evidence that a woman's boyfriend had choked her before, arguing that she should have known better than to allow him near her infant. After he severely beat her baby, she pleaded guilty to failing to protect her child. Now she's serving now she's serving a 20-year sentence, and she lost her child. She lost her life and she lost her child. Number 3, while cases of people who unalive their abusers in self-defense get more media attention, lawyers and other experts say it's just as common, if not more so, for people to be incarcerated for supporting a crime committed by their abuser. Rachel White Doman, an Illinois lawyer who represents incarcerated survivors, estimates about a quarter of her current caseload consists of people who were charged using accomplice liability or similar laws. She thinks the cases get less attention because they are harder to explain to the public. 4, some states have passed laws that allow DV survivors to present evidence of abuse to have their sentences revised, but many people prosecuted under accomplice liability laws are left out. For example, in 2015, Illinois passed a law to allow people in prison to apply for resentencing if their crime was directly related to DV. The state does not track how many people have been released from prison under the Illinois law, but the number has been much smaller than many advocates for DV victims hoped for. One reason is that the law doesn't say whether the judges can diverge from mandatory minimums. So even if a person presents evidence they were involved in a crime because they were coerced by an abusive partner, if they were serving a mandatory minimum sentence, a judge has ruled the law can do nothing to help them. So they are basically stuck if there are mandatory minimums. Number 5 is tough. We've seen some of these ex-trafficking stories pop up. Number 5, people who are ex-trafficked by an abusive partner are vulnerable to prosecution for assisting with crimes, even if their participation was minimal. In one instance, a girl with developmental delays was ex-trafficked when she was 17 years old by a man who savagely beat her, according to a sentencing memo. But because she had helped store a pew-pew and drugs for him, federal prosecutors in Washington state charged her as his co-defendant in his trafficking ring. She agreed to a plea deal at age 19 and was released with time served in 2009, but had to serve a year of supervised release. That is challenging because what does she really do? These judges need to have some leeway to make decisions on a human level. This is crazy. In another case, Ajayla Banks was convicted in federal court for conspiracy to ex-traffic a minor in Alaska, despite being 19 years old and being trafficked by the same man who was her co-defendant. Where are they thinking? Why isn't this girl protected if she was being trafficked? According to court documents, he had recently shot her in the stomach while she was pregnant with his child. Although she was sentenced to time served, she had to register as an ex-offender, and her home address was made public, which she said makes her vulnerable to further harassment and threats. Lawmakers and advocates for survivors say there are 2 ways to tackle this problem. The first would be to limit accomplice liability so fewer people can be charged using those laws. Last year, a bill that would have done that failed to gain traction in the Illinois legislature, but activists with groups like Restore Justice say they are continuing to push for changes. Another approach some states have taken is to rethink how DV victims are sentenced. New York's DV Survivors Justice Act, passed in 2019, allows for a judge to depart from mandatory minimums when sentencing or resentencing survivors, according to the Survivors Justice Project, which works to free victims of DV from prison. 64 people have been resentenced in New York after filing applications. Yes, we need to rethink laws. This is one of the reasons why politics is personal. We have got to think on the human side of things. And a lot of women are in jail simply because they were paired up or abused by a man. So we have to think bigger when we are thinking politics and laws changing and laws being created that will actually help people. Join the conversation. Let me know what you think. Push this video out so more people can see it, and look into the Marshall Project if you are a content creator, and maybe make your own content on it. All right, like, comment, share. Here we have an example of a woman doing what she is expected to do and getting no appreciation, because a lot of the labor that we do is invisible labor or unappreciated, unpaid labor. Okay, so she posted this in the Two Hot Takes subreddit saying, "Am I the a hole for being upset after my husband had a heart attack?" Okay, let's see what she's saying. She says, 2 months ago, my husband, 43, and I, wife, 33, were hanging out when my husband started to complain of chest pain. I told him we needed to go to the hospital to get him checked. He refused. A few hours later, he started complaining of chest pain, complaining again of chest pain. I forced him to go to the hospital. The doctors advised he was having a heart attack. It was just me and him in the hospital. He needed to get transferred to a different hospital. I followed the ambulance. For 3 days, he was in the hospital getting surgery. I made sure someone was going to our house to take care of the animals, goats, chickens, dogs, etc. I stood with him every second of the time he was in there. I did everything for him without hesitation. I fed him, bathed him. I woke him up every time his monitor went off every 15 minutes. This just goes to show how wives help keep these people alive. It just really goes to show, because he would not have gone to the hospital without his wife pushing him to go. He went into surgery, and I stood in the room he was in waiting for him to come in. He couldn't eat, so I knew he would be hungry when he came out, but I waited to make sure he was okay. Surgery went well, and he was in and out due to the meds. He said he was hungry and wanted coffee. I said I would go to the cafeteria and grab him something. I was gone for maybe 10 minutes tops. His friends were in the room when I got upstairs taking a picture with him. They stood for maybe a half an hour, 1 hour tops. They left, and I continued to stay there with him, doing the same thing, feeding him, bathing him, etc. When he got out of the hospital, he couldn't do much. So again, I took off work and I waited on him hand and foot. No questions asked. Not upset, just making sure my husband was okay. He is my life. Well, he has been talking to his family about how excited he was his friends came to see him. He posted a photo on Facebook saying how happy he was for the support his friends had for him and how he appreciated it so much. How happy he was that the first people he saw was his friends. He doesn't remember asking me to go down to get him coffee and food, and how out of it he was. How he couldn't explain the love he has for his friends. Not one time has he acknowledged the fact that his wife was there for him every single step of the way, how his wife lost 2 weeks of work to take care of him, how his wife lost sleep taking care of him. I don't expect to be praised. I don't expect him to do anything extravagant for me. He was in pain, and as a wife, I did what I needed to do. I took a vow. But am I the a-hole for feeling pissed off that every time he gets on the phone, he talks about how happy he was that his friends came to support him? Am I the a-hole for being upset that not one time he recognized that I stood by his side 24/7? He is still 3 months later having me cater to him, put his food in front of him on the table, get the remote for him, get every drink he needs, physically putting his clothes on for him, going to the store to get everything for the house, doing all the cleaning, cooking, mowing the lawn, taking out the trash, feeding the animals, cleaning out the pens. He got himself a servant 3 months later. Lord, I understand he had a heart attack. I know he shouldn't be doing strenuous things, but it just makes me feel like I am a maid instead of his wife. To clarify, I don't mind doing everything. It just makes it so much harder without a thank you. Am I the a-hole for being upset that he doesn't recognize what I've done every single day for the last 3 months, but can constantly praise the 5 guys that came in for less than an hour 1 hour in the hospital? This story, when I was reading the story, I didn't get to this part before I started taking screenshots. But she is doing way too much. She's doing like the job of about 6 different people. She's the maid, she's the cook, she's the lawn care person, she's the emotional support, she's the personal assistant. She is doing all of this, at least 5 to 6 jobs, and it's unpaid, it's unappreciated, and she's going to burn herself out. She's cleaning, she's the cleaning up after the pets and the animals. Yeah, this is way too much. And because of that, she is definitely going to burn herself out, especially since she can't even get a simple thank you and there's no appreciation. Like, why would you stick around for someone like that? And the fact that she's the one that is keeping him alive, she's also his personal caretaker and nurse and all of that. She's doing too much and not getting any kind of reward in return, except for the fact that she is married to this man that has to be completely taken care of. This is not the top rated comment, but this needed to be said. Snoo Recipe says, as a cardiac surgery ICU nurse, reading this post is absolutely horrifying. One, by doting on him, you're prolonging his recovery and could possibly be hurting it. Two, he should be doing everything for himself, plus exercising daily, small walks, stairs, etc. It is absolutely not appropriate for him to be a patient forever. We stand our patients up the day following surgery, so I don't know why you're dressing him. That's in. His full recovery is literally dependent on him putting in the hard work after his surgery. We put the new vessels in, but his job is to keep them open. I would stop everything you're doing now and only help when he's literally struggling, not when he's requesting from a sitting position what you need to do next. Please educate him that he needs to take recovery seriously, as this kind of behavior is hurtful to his own health, let alone his wife's mental health. You'll become burnt out being his caregiver, and it's not really appropriate at this stage. I couldn't imagine being this dependent and helpless as an adult. So I don't know what these people are thinking. Like, this dynamic just seems ridiculous to me. What she has turned into his nurse mother, like she's nursing him, she's mothering him, and this is not a dynamic that is a husband and wife dynamic that is healthy. Bubble Ratty says, this comment needs to be higher. I had major abdominal surgery in June with the bonus emergency surgery straight after. The second day in the HDU, I was gotten up and walked to my chair and the toilet. By the end of the week's stay in the hospital, I was helping my elderly ward mates who were struggling. Once I was home, I thankfully had my mom to help with the heavy lifting, bending chores, but she only stayed with me for a month, and then I was back to living by myself and fully independent. Dude was delaying his recovery by being a potato. The heart attack is the body warning that needs to change to keep the cardiovascular system healthy. I understand you care, but you need to stop babying him and communicate with him how you feel about being taken for granted. He needs to get up off his butt and put on his own clothes and help around the house and appreciate the care you've given him. Enough people don't understand that we are not servants. Like, a lot of women have embodied that martyr title. Like, we are supposed to wake up and love them so much that we just give of ourselves without the expectation of anything in return. And I want women to know and understand that we deserve better than that. All the Pretty Dresses says, this sounds like a late friend. He had a heart issue and a minor stroke. He had his friends sneak him food he shouldn't be eating, demanded his visitors get him vending machine snacks. His wife was spoon feeding him, bathing, and dressing him. She complained to the nursing staff about why they weren't feeding or dressing him like she did. He also refused physical therapy when he was out of the hospital. It was the same. Feed him, dress him, and wouldn't get out of the bed. Mind you, his wife had her own health and mobility issues, plus had no choice but to work to cover insurance. His friends cared for him while she was at work. He ultimately died alone in a nursing home at over 400 pounds. Her reputation went from doting wife to the enabler who helped unalive him. Also, men like this tend to stop seeing their wives as partners. They see them as providers and servants, and the things they do are what they're supposed to do. Why be thankful when they view any acts of love or service as part of the job? Part of the job. This is not your job. This, being in a relationship, being in a marriage is not a job. It is a mutually supportive relationship where there's give and take and support both ways. This is not a service gig, an unpaid service gig at that. Anyways, join the conversation. Let me know what you think about this. Don't forget to like, comment, and share. There are some very triggering topics, some comments that will be in this post. So beware, we're talking about women's issues in this post. I had to come back and create this trigger warning because as I was reading through some of these comments, I saw how sensitive these things were. Trigger warning for SA and possible rape and just terrible things that women have gone through in the medical community getting pelvic exams. I was sent this post for the sake of discussion. Would you see an elderly OBGYN, male OBGYN? So she posted this woman posted this in the 2X chromosome subreddit saying, I will never see a male OBGYN nearing retirement age. Now, quick question. Would you see a young male OBGYN, someone that's not nearing retirement age? So that's another part of the discussion that we should go ahead and have. So she doesn't update, but I'll do that after I do the main post. She says, I need to rant. I flipping hate old male OBGYNs trained in like the 70s. I've had nothing but awful experiences. I've been experiencing pain, so I had to make an appointment. But my midwife is on leave, so I had to settle for a random opening. This retiree I saw kept talking about an issue I repeatedly said I didn't have. Told me no need to worry when he finally got to the issue I do have. And when I asked what I could do about it, he just reiterated that I should only find the issue causing my pain mildly inconveniencing and gave zero help on fixing it. Again, because it's not at all a big problem. So fun going through a pelvic exam to basically be told to stop whining about my discomfort. Women's healthcare is a horror show. Then I guess the comments started coming and she says, update. This post has 325,000 views so far. I'm glad that my icky experience has turned into some meaningful conversations in the comments and hopefully built some awareness. I don't think that men in particular have been that pressed to learn about women's health. And that's what I have been seeing as far as some of the things that women have said. I don't think that I have personally experienced anything like that. Like the two people that delivered my babies were both women. I had a bunch of women nurses in the rooms. The last gynecologist I had was a woman. I haven't found a new one in Nevada yet. So I haven't had this issue. But I think more and more of us are moving towards wanting to get women providers, but also for someone like me, a Black woman, wanting and preferring another woman of color, a Black woman, if available, is also important because many times our issues are brushed aside for whatever reason. Sexism and racism are baked into the cake of many institutions. But let's jump into some of these comments. This next one from this throwaway account is pretty gross. She says, my first gyno appointment when I was 18 was with a male OBGYN who was old. When he first looked at my private parts, he said, man, I bet you have a time fighting the boys off. I know if I was 20 years younger, like, sir, you were 20 years younger, you'd still be 40 and too old for me. That is quite gross. That is so inappropriate. And yeah, people like this really don't need to be anywhere near a woman. This is so unprofessional. Pine Park says, my first gyno appointment at 18, doctor was my mom's doctor, and he was old as F. He said, I've got good birthing hips. I was mortified. Side note, I, in fact, did not have good birthing hips. I have hip dysplasia, and it really caused a lot of problems during pregnancy. I casually mentioned what old geezer said to me, and then my OB was like, what the F, what a pig. This person, Pajarita Rojas, says, good God, my sports teacher said that to me when I was a teenager. So not okay. Pine Park says, definitely not okay. I was so young and innocent and that I couldn't even speak. 30 years later, I dare an MFer to say anything like that. They might need a visit to the dentist. Parametric or Treat says, you've got harassment tongue and teeth. Carly Simon says, my female AP bio teacher told me that too, only realized as an adult that that wasn't okay. Yeah, that it's not okay to be talking about a girl or a woman's body like that. I am the Lizard Queen says, oh my God, what a totally inappropriate thing to say to a patient. I would interpret that as an actual comment and would have reported him. Mandy Vigilante says, is there any other way to interpret it? But Bitted Spray says, would you really when you were 18 though? So that is a good point. Would you have reported him at 18? This is one of the reasons why we as women right now need to be preparing our daughters that these things are inappropriate to say, for someone to say to them, so that they know that they should report these types of things. And we need to be role playing and making it come out of our mouths and their mouths so quickly that it's like second nature, because this is inappropriate and needs to be rooted out of our experience. That's why Imaginary at the bottom says, depends on how you were raised. Personally, I had a mother who trained me hardcore on how to treat being harassed and even how to report it. She was one of those who didn't want her kids going through what she did. So this is the reason why we need to continue to have these discussions so that moms can protect their children. And if you don't have a mom that is like that, so you can protect yourself if you see these videos and know that this is inappropriate. Smandy says, if I were 18 now, yes, I would. Back when I was 18, that behavior was unfortunately par for the course. Wimberly says, WTF, oh my God, that guy needed to be reported. And I'm sure you're not the only one that he said stuff like that to. And then the throwaway account says, my little sister ended up going to him when she turned 18, and she immediately called me after, like, hey, so did that doctor say actual stuff to you that was really inappropriate, or was it just me? I felt so bad that I didn't warn her. More and more of us women need to speak up so that we can prepare the next person to look out for these things or to avoid these people. We need to name and shame. I'm going to end with this screenshot. This woman says, I was abused by an old male OBGYN when I was 16 and still a virgin in the early 80s. He couldn't get the speculum in to examine me, and I started crying. It hurt so much. He threw it across the room and into the sink and told me to get dressed. It felt like grape, to be honest. He then brought me and my mother into his office and was a total jerk, and also asked why I wasn't actually active yet so that he could do his exam. It was surreal. Once again, let's prepare our daughters. Let's seek out women providers and report these things. This type of situation is very, very challenging. Siren Singer says, WTF, I had a similar issue with the speculum in my early 20s, and my female OBGYN responded by grabbing a pediatric sized one, using extra lube, and being even gentler. Exactly. She treated her like a human. Yes, like the person at the bottom says, I'm so damn sorry that happened to you, and for all the other women that these types of things that have happened. This was a challenging screenshot, and I know it might sound weird to hit like, but go ahead and hit like, comment, and share so that we can continue these conversations.
Not the girls absolutely dragging and gagging this man. Y'all, this shit got me dead. Let me explain. So here's what's tea. So the other night, Harrison Butker, the kicker for the Kansas City Chiefs, buried a 51-yard field goal to win the game for the Chiefs, like as the clock hit 0. Super dramatic, like he was the savior of the game. Now, non-football fans may know Harrison Butker for giving a commencement speech at a college graduation, where he basically told the women in the crowd that their life's purpose is to cook clean, make their man a sandwich, and that they wasted their money on their education. If you think I'm exaggerating, go watch the speech. So he took to the gram to post a little dumpy from his big night. He had to show off his little game fit, his little celebration photos. He put a quote in the caption. He says, what does it mean if you can win 1,000 battles if you can... Okay, no, I'm not reading that shit. Moving on. People were screenshotting his comments and putting them on Twitter because they were so funny. This girl said, sorry, I couldn't watch the game. I was cleaning the house. I was too busy vacuuming and making my husband a sandwich to watch. Ugh. Too bad I couldn't see it. I was cooking dinner. I missed it. I was doing the dishes. I was folding laundry, so I missed it. Was his wife allowed to watch? His wife is God's strongest soldier, because this one says, Harrison Butker when his wife tries to congratulate him on his game winner, and it's Squidward throwing SpongeBob back into the kitchen. So I decided to take a much deserved break from dreaming about being a mother and folding the laundry and go back and look at his comments, because that shit had me dead. And now there are mysteriously only 200 comments left on the post, and they say stuff like, keep standing up for traditional values. We love Harrison. Faith, then family, then football. That's a woman. Girl, stand up. Swifties on blank watch after he drilled the 50-yarder to win. Wait, aren't the doesn't Taylor Swift's boyfriend play for the Chiefs? Aren't y'all on the same team? What are you talking about? Catholicism is the truth. Where did all of the silly and fun comments go, Harrison? I want to know if he's sitting there deleting them or if he's like blocking out words from his comments, because all of my fun comments are gone. Based on the black borders he has on every single one of his posts, I assume he doesn't know how to work Instagram well. So my theory is a member of his team is going through and deleting the comments, or his wife is like, I'm gonna block these words out. I can't handle this no more. Whatever the case may be, much like my queen Serena Williams, who was hosting the ESPYs and called him out on stage while he was watching, I will never let him live down, taking away the joyful moment and accomplishment of graduating for all of the women in that audience, and for disturbing my peace every time he hits the screen. Thank you.